Hey class, this is Katrina Berg, and this is your week 4 additional resource video. I just want to highlight some key points from the chapters that you'll be reading this week. So the chapters that you're going to be covering really are talking about things as brand and product decisions. You're also looking at pricing decisions, marketing channels, and physical distribution. So let's start with some basic terminology. With when we're talking about product, we're looking at a good or service or even idea that creates value for the buyer or the user. There are two types of products. You're looking at consumer and industrial. So, management today, when they're looking at product and brand policies and considering strategies for what they want to sell and provide value to the consumer for, they have to be sensitive to market needs. They have to look at what the competition's doing, and they also have to balance their own resources, and that includes ambitions. It could include money. It could include staff and talent. So again, management today really needs to find a balance between everything that's going on in their home country, in their expansion country, and it can be internal and external factors. So we define product. Brand, you should have familiarity with that concept. Brand is it's a bundle of images. It's a concept of what the consumer thinks that you provide value for. It's a series of experiences. It's a series of images that the consumer has seen about you and how they understand you. There are two differentiators there. There's brand image and there's brand equity. Image is the perceptions. Equity is the actual value of the brand that has been created. For example, Coca-Cola would have a high brand equity because there's high recognition and value in that brand. When you're looking at a local product or brand, that's success in a single market. When you're looking at an international product or brand, you're looking at success in several different market areas. And then, of course, you have the third, which is a global brand or market. And this is a large scale countries region. Let's move on to from just the product standpoint to communication strategies. When you are looking at what type of strategies you're going to employ, you can consider an extension strategy, an adaptation strategy, or a creation strategy. There's going to be more in your book going into greater detail, but again, I just want to highlight those points for you. Pricing decisions. So obviously in a global market, there is a cost benefit to being in a global market. You can produce your product or service for a cheaper rate. However you set that up, it's, in country, out of country, a mix. But obviously there's an economic benefit to doing that. So in an ideal market, the lower price would prevail. So when you're looking at strategies for pricing, you're going to look at market skimming, market penetration, and market holding. Again, your book is going to have more details on those, but I do want you to be aware of those three key ways that you can do a pricing strategy. There's a term called export price escalation. I want you to be aware of as well. It's an accumulation of costs when products are shipped from one country to another. So obviously there has to be a profit ultimately when you're doing this, because otherwise you wouldn't ship in between countries. But once you make a pricing decision, you look at your costs, your benefits, and what your profit's going to be. Don't forget to factor that escalation cost in as well. You're also going to be impacted when you're looking at pricing decisions by currency fluctuations. The currency market changes daily, weekly. Different things can impact the currency market, such as political and social issues. You can also look at natural disasters, which might impact currency regulation, which might impact a currency. So if you are working in one country, say the US, and then you are working in China, that currency is going to, whatever that change or fluctuation currency is going to impact your bottom line ultimately. So you need to know what that currency rate is. Inflation can also impact your pricing, government controls, and competition, even if you're in a price war. Other issues related to global marketing overall, there's a term called gray market, dumping, price fixing, and transfer pricing. If you want more information about that, please do find that in your chapters. You should be able to read that content. So to finish up some highlights, let's look at channels of distribution. So that's getting your product or service to the consumer. So the channel is an organized series of agencies and institutions that perform all of the activities required to link producers with users to accomplish the marketing task at hand, and that's ultimately what you're doing. Physical distribution, that of course is the movement of goods through channels. You have two different channels, B2B, which is business to business or business to consumer. And the channel decisions that you're making in this process, they can be difficult because of variations in the structures from country to country. So once again, you need to have a clear understanding of what's happening on the ground and how your product is going to travel through those different channels to get to where it needs to go and what's associated with that. You're also looking at transportation and physical distribution. They're an important part of a company's value chain. Supply chain logistics also are going to be impacted. So that's it for the summary for this week class. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.